Hey, you folks. Give me 30 seconds. I travel with like a stack of books, and one of them has my talk in it. Can I want me to give a talk on legacy? What are we trying to build here at the Vine? Or more importantly, what are we inviting you here to? And I want to let you know right now that what we're inviting you here to, it's not easy and it's not quite what you think it is on the surface. Um, when I was praying about this talk, I was drawn to Revelation. So anyone actually read the book of Revelation before? It is like trippy. It is like, I mean, there's this guy named John. He's on an island called Patmos by himself because he's been exiled, right? So John's by himself on this island. He's exiled. He's all alone. This small, tiny little island out in the sea of the universe. And when he's alone and by himself in this small, tiny little island, the first thing he sees is he turns around, he hears a voice calling his name, he turns around, and there is the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end. It's Jesus. And Jesus shows up in this fantastic vision. And when he follows Jesus, he's given a vision of the glories of heaven. The saints robed in white, worshiping the Lamb for all of eternity. This vast heavenly community that he couldn't even ponder. And when I was praying about how that how that book starts, I think the small island that John is on, it's supposed to be symbolic. What this island represents for us, that John is stuck on this tiny little island in the middle of the Mediterranean, I don't know, sea, is that we ourselves, I was praying about this, that we ourselves are fundamentally small. I remember one of the most terrifying things for high school me. For those of you who want an idea of what high school me looks like, imagine me with shorter hair, waterfall bangs. And if you have any questions about what I looked like, see Bailey. She was my core team member. And high school me, there was some lessons. I think it started in elementary school when you'd read like the Discovery Kids magazines. And they're like, look how big the universe is. And I remember reading once where it was like, yeah, and the sun's gonna explode and kill all of us one day. That was a lot for fifth grade me. But it was funny because it developed in this fear in me. This fear not just of being annihilated completely, but this fear of being forgotten. This idea, and this kept going through my life. I remember I was talking to a friend in high school, and I was like, I am so scared of being forgotten. And I love history. I study history all the time. There's this thing called living memory in history. Okay, so we are within currently the living memory of World War II, as in there are people alive right now who witnessed World War II. Okay, and the living memory of World War II will continue as long as you guys can remember those people who witnessed World War II. So the living memory of World War II will end not when the veterans die, but when you die, right? Because you'll be the last generation to ever meet a World War II veteran. Okay. Most humans throughout history are forgotten after the living memory is gone, completely forgotten. I have studied one of my favorite areas of history to study is the Civil War. Okay. Millions of men were slaughtered in this country, and most of them are completely forgotten in mass graves somewhere. And that terrified me. And I think this is a fundamental fear that if we think about it, we all have somewhere. Okay. Um, and it doesn't like manifest as this like YOLO, whatever. No, it's like if you really think about it, it gets a little scary. And it's funny that we have this fear because evolutionarily speaking, we shouldn't. Think about it. Cats, dogs, raccoons, whatever random creatures that are rummaging around the trash here in CYSC, right? They have a fear of being attacked, but not necessarily a fear of dying. They're afraid of pain. But humans, while we're afraid of pain because it's uncomfortable and we don't like it, we're also afraid of being forgotten. And again, evolutionarily, this is stupid. It's true. Everything that we see around us dies and is forgotten. If we just evolved naturally and there's no God or something like that, then we should have evolved recognizing this fact. I'm going to die one day. Whoop-de-doo, right? If it was just evolution. But this fear of being forgotten, I think, points towards something that we all know inside of our hearts, that we're made for a permanent existence. We're all made for a permanent existence. And somewhere in our crazy little psyches, we know that. And it manifests as this fear of being forgotten. Checking my crazy notes. My handwriting's not great. So the reason I say all this is that Kara wants me to talk about legacy. And when I said that it's more challenging and deeper than what you think it is, what I'm calling you to is not to the vine for the sake of the vine. It's not even to St. Brendan's for the sake of St. Brendan's. Okay? because those things will pass away and be forgotten at some point. There have been parishes that have been closed for centuries. There have been youth groups that have collapsed, risen, and fallen. That's not what I'm calling you to. To give you an idea of what I'm calling you to give you an idea of what I'm looking for, there's I stole this from St. Francis de Sales. I stole like 3 of his exercises, and then we're going to use them right now. So go ahead and stand up. Okay, we're going to do something real quick. Stand up. Good. You're all standing. All right, here's what you're going to do. While you're standing, I want you to close your eyes and quiet your minds. I want you to think about your body, but in the form of your soul. So it's kind of this transparent thing. It's standing where you are. It's attached to your body, right? But at some point, it's not going to be. And everything else around you fades away. You're kind of standing on this glass floor. It's kind of holding you there in place, but it fades away. And it's just you, that little light that is your soul, and you're standing there on this seemingly invisible plane. And above you, you can see, or maybe sense is probably the better word. You can sense the angels in the choirs in heaven singing, Sanctus, 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 holy, holy, holy. And you can hear it. It's faint, but you can see it. And as you get closer, you can see more and more and more of them. They're gathered around something. You can't quite get it yet, right? But you see it, and it looks attractive. It looks like something, but it's hard. It's far away. You're going to have to climb whatever non-existent ladder is in front of you to get there. It takes work. It takes effort. But that's where you feel like you're called to go. Below your feet, you hear something else too. That floor, the glass floor that's only being kept up by the fact that you're still alive. This glass floor, the only reason that you haven't fallen down yet or gone up yet is because you're still alive. And below you is a much easier path. And it looks enticing. It looks easy and simple, but you can hear behind the allure of wealth and power and pleasure, you can hear screams that don't cease. And there's some voice laughing in the background, and he wants you to come down there too. Go ahead and sit back down. I don't do that to scare you, but to give you an idea of what we're actually looking for here, okay? The purpose, not just of the Vine, but of the Catholic Church in general, is avoiding what's below you and getting up and taking as many people with you as you can. Because what's below you stinks, okay? Beyond anything you could ever imagine. Every putrid smell, every horrible thing you ever heard of, it's worse than any bad feeling you've ever had. It is eternal, not you-ness. It is the opposite of your very existence down there. And what's above you, it's hard to get to because we're fallen human beings. But it's so much more attractive. And the reason that this is challenging is because it requires conversion. This talk is going to have 3 points to it. The point at the end of the day, goal, is the salvation of your soul, the soul of everyone else around you, and your conversion. Okay? Repeat that again. Your soul, the soul of everyone else around you, and conversion. We're going to work backwards to forwards. Conversion. If you're note takers, I feel like I'm in class right now. I miss my whiteboard. I teach theology. I want you to write down conversion. It's going to be your first bullet point. This is the most challenging part of the Christian life. This is what usually happens to people. They get on Jesus high, and then they're like, yeah, this is hard. Or they're praying, and the Lord reveals something to them that they actually have to change. Like, I don't like that. It's kind of nice. Conversion is difficult, and it is the uncomfy part of Christianity, okay? I can guarantee you. Actually, no, I don't guarantee you. I promise you that you are not perfect yet. You will not be perfect this side of heaven, okay? One of the things that I found when I got deeper into my spiritual life is that there was always something in front of me that I could keep working towards. Not in like this desperate crawl, but in this like exciting race. And what you'll find out the more that you run that race, the more exciting it is, the more tiring it is, and the more there is to go. And the farther you go, the more rewarding it is. But it's not easy. I don't want anyone to leave this place and be like, oh yeah, I went to a retreat for a weekend and now I'm saved. I don't need to do anything else. I'm great. You are great, don't get me wrong. But there's still that call, that path of conversion that you have to take. Conversion requires 3 things: self-knowledge, self-possession, and self-gift. When you work through the steps of conversion, what you're going to first find out when you're praying is that the Lord is going to reveal things to you that you may or may not like. You're going to learn things about you, self-knowledge. You learn, I'm really good at this. I'm really bad at that. The Lord has blessed me in this area, right? There's this gift or talent that he's given me, and sometimes I use it for the kingdom and sometimes I don't. I'm trying to think of a good example for myself. Actually, I'll use an example of other people. There are people that I met that are insanely emotionally intelligent, right? That is a gift the Lord has given them, this extreme emotional intelligence. But some people use that emotional intelligence, this gift that the Lord has given them, they can use it to bring people to the kingdom, to comfort people, to help bring them along, or they can use this gift that they've figured out in self-knowledge to manipulate people. Strength is the same way, right? Some people use strength for the sake of helping others. Some people use it for manipulation, physical manipulation. You acquire this self-knowledge, and the Lord will point out these things to you when you're in prayer. In the silence of your hearts, you'll find him highlighting little things about yourself. From there, you have this self-possession. You understand who you are. One of my fundamental weaknesses is that I am ridiculously prideful. I think every time I walk into the confessional, I'm like, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I am prideful. And it's like, and sometimes it's a joke. Like I run around, I'm like, my chief virtue is my humility, and I love to tell people about it, which is true. I'm really humble. But that's something I know about myself. Like the Lord has highlighted that to me. I could be very self-centered when I want to be. And that's something I have to be constantly watching out for. That's part of that self-knowledge, that self-possession, knowing what you are, who you are. And once you possess yourself, once you've aimed or put in line the parts of yourself that are out of line, once you have understood, you're starting to understand the depths of your heart, then you can actually give yourself, okay? Self-gift. And this self-gift is where everyone else comes in. Because you see, if we have a community or ourselves are self-centered or self-serving, the worst kind of Christian community is the kind of Christian community that only serves itself, okay? We do not grow the vine for the sake of making that lovely spreadsheet that Colleen made have more numbers on it, okay? That's not the point of it. We don't bring more people to St. Brendan's for the sake of putting more money in the basket. That would be a self-serving or self-centered community. No, the community, once we possess ourselves and once we're ready to give ourselves, it needs to go out. That's when we start looking at the salvation of everyone else's soul. Next bullet point, everyone else, okay? Conversion, everyone else. 3, I'm good at this. Right, this is a serious talk, guys. Why are you laughing so much? Anyway, there's this temptation, I think, when we're talking about the spiritual life, to be like, okay, first me and Jesus have to get right with each other before we can go out and save any other souls. Yes and no. There's some truth to that. There's some not truth to that. Here's what I sometimes see people do. They're like, me and Jesus have to be in a perfect relationship before I can go out and tell other people about him, before I can go out and minister to anyone, before I can go out and save any souls. Not necessarily, because newsflash, you'll never have a perfect relationship with Jesus this side of heaven. Okay? So if you're going to keep setting a goalpost for yourself, like, well, once I've got the best prayer life ever, I'm going to go out and tell people about Jesus. Or once I stop committing sins, I'm going to go out and tell people about Jesus. Yeah, neither of those things are going to happen. Believe it or not, none of you are the Virgin Mary. So you're going to commit sins, sorry. And that's just the reality of it. This side of heaven, we're never going to be perfect. We're always going to be striving for that perfection, and it's going to be awesome. Trust me. But you have to go out at some point. In the Gospels, what's interesting about Jesus when he talks to his apostles is he goes up to Peter, and he's like, hey, Peter, you want to go to be a fisher of men? Peter's like, I don't know, I guess. And he follows him, right? So Peter follows him. All the other apostles follow him. How good at being like stellar apostles were the apostles? Were they like the best people ever at their job? No, they were usually like they mucked something. They did something wrong. They messed up. Peter goes over. He's like, Jesus, you're the Lord. And Jesus is like, wow, good job, buddy. And then he's like, but you can't do that. Get behind me, Satan. Right? But even those disciples who are still working on the relationship with Jesus, who is standing right next to them, like 24/7. Those disciples who are still working on the relationship with Jesus are still sent out, right? Jesus doesn't go, well, I want to wait till you're absolutely perfect, and then you can go. He's like, yeah, no, I know you're a mess. I just need you to like go preach the gospel and cast out demons. Hey, go. And they mess up at it sometime. But that's what you're going to do. Okay, the path to sanctification doesn't happen in a vacuum. Hey, my early Catholic life, okay, was little cradle Catholic baby Keith. Right? And little cradle Catholic baby Keith with a stupid haircut went all the way through his life with the same haircut. And it was amazing. It was beautiful. But he didn't really care about his faith. My friend would drag me to youth group all the time. I wouldn't go unless she drugged me there, but I would go on occasion, right? I didn't really care though. Went to mass because mom drove me there and she owned the house. Don't go to mass, don't get dinner. Well, you know. But it wasn't until I joined Vine Core Team, which I told the youth minister at the time was also the best and worst decision you could have ever made because I was totally unprepared. Like I got thrown into a small group, like, oh my gosh, I'm in charge of eternal souls now. They could go to heaven or hell, and I would be partially responsible. Shoot. And that kind of lit a little fire under my butt right there. It was in the context of this working with other people, trying to get people to heaven, sometimes doing great, sometimes being kind of a doofus, that I started to grow. It was in the community of the core team and the community of being with you guys here that helped me to grow spiritually. And then I did a year in seminary, which I am not in any longer, as you can clearly see. I teach at Bishop Ready High School. Go Knights. But that community there also helped to form me. When you go out and you're working hand in hand with someone to save them, whether it's the people in this room that you're going to strive towards the Lord together with, or the people that you're going to go out and preach to, that's going to help sanctify your own soul. And when it comes to building a legacy, we can build so many things here on earth. We can build buildings, we can build careers, we can build whatever. There's this Johnny Cash song. Johnny Cash is an awesome country music singer. He, towards the end of his life, when he was an old man dying, was given a record deal he couldn't refuse. I think it's called The American. And he was told by the record company, like, just play whatever you want. We won't like edit it. We're not going to force you to do something. You're Johnny Cash. Do what you want. And there's one song, I think it's Hurt, but there's this line that he has, and it's from, again, an old man at the end of his life. And this is a man who is in the Country Music Hall of Fame. I think he might be even in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm not sure about that. But he is a famous, famous man. And there's a line that he sings. He has whatever he wants. You know, he had the most beautiful women. He had the biggest houses. People applauded his name throughout the world. And he sings, "You can have it all, my empire of dirt." We can build a lot of things here, but the things that are actually going to matter are those immortal souls sitting next to you and that populate this planet. You can build a lot of things here, but if what you build here isn't ordered towards getting people to heaven, you're not going to see anything. You want a legacy? Don't build a statue. Don't build a career. Don't build anything that's not ordered towards Christ. You can build statues that are ordered towards Christ. You can build buildings that are meant to help people encounter the Lord. I mean, that's why we have churches, which have all this beautiful art. It's supposed to point people to Christ, but we know that one of these days they're not going to exist. The one thing that is going to exist are those shining immortal souls in heaven. The holy, holy, holy. And when I go to heaven, I want to know that the legacy I built is sitting on my left and on my right with me. When Christ says, go and make disciples of all nations, right? This isn't just go and make disciples of the people sitting next to you. This isn't go and make disciples of the people that it's really easy to talk to Jesus about. No, he means all nations. You know what the nations were like back then that the Christians were evangelizing? They weren't very nice. Not very nice at all. He doesn't say, go out and evangelize your Jewish friend that might be kind of friendly to you. Go out and evangelize your Gentile friend who might be kind of friendly to you. No, he says, go out to all the nations, even the ones that try to kill you, that persecute you, that hate you. That's our call. That's the legacy that we want. That holy, holy, holy. And when we get to heaven, God willing, all of us, those little lowercase s saints, maybe some of you guys will be uppercase s saints, get a little statue of yourself. Be kind of fun. But when you get to heaven, that's the legacy. We were reading through Revelation the other day as part of Mass. The stones that build up heaven are the saints. You want a legacy that's going to last. You want a legacy that's going to surpass this earth, that's going to be here for forever. Again, it's the people on the left and the right, the people that you're going to be worshiping God for all eternity with. And you have to prepare the people around you and yourself for that. And now this is where we get to you, your beautiful little immortal soul, you. At this point, if you're like me, you're starting to think about where your priorities need to be in order. What in my life is ordered towards that eternal legacy, salvation? What in my life is ordered towards getting other people to heaven? What do I know about myself and what do I not know about myself? I'm going to remind you again. The order here is you start working towards your own conversion with Christ. You start going out for everyone else. And in the process of doing that, you're saving your own soul, right? Funny enough, we started kind of with you, with your own conversion. And that's what led to an army in heaven with you. I want you to close your eyes again. I want you to imagine that you've made it to heaven. Okay? On the left and the right are all the people that you've gotten there with. The holy, holy, holy is being sung for all of eternity. There's a joy that you can't shake off your face. Any depression, lies, anxiety, anger, it's gone. It doesn't exist. That weight that you felt on your shoulders since you were a kid doesn't exist. It's like you're floating in a sense. And that conversion that you had initially got you there and it got everyone else there. You have beaten hell. You and your friends that are on your left and your right have beaten hell. And you stand in the company and the choirs of angels and saints singing to God forever. And it feels right. That hole that you've had in your heart for forever that you've tried to fill with whatever, either consciously or subconsciously, is filled finally. And as you sit or kneel or stand among those choirs of angels, I hope you have a little bit of joy too for the fact that you were able to work with Christ in your life to get to this point. There's kind of a joy in looking back on the journey, on the actual legacy that you built on earth that transfers into heaven, the souls on your left and your right. And as you're imagining yourself there with this amazing family that you'll be with for forever, I want you to look around the crowd, and everyone's kind of pointed towards one thing or person. That Alpha and Omega, that beginning and the end that John encountered on that tiny little island of Patmos. And as they sing to the Lamb who was slain, to Christ, to the one who came and redeemed you, the familiar and the unfamiliar who is now right in front of you for forever, I hope that what you hear is what John writes at the end of Revelation. And you hear the Spirit of the bride say, "Come." And let him who hears say, "Come." And let him who is thirsty come. And let him who desires take the water of life without price. You hear that calling from the center, from Jesus. And as you approach with you and your friends, that legacy that you've now built, you hear him say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." That is what we're shooting for. Well done, my good and faithful servant. So I'm going to pose 3 questions to you that you can think about. If you want to take prayer time later, if you want to pray about it during worship, whatever. But here's the 3 questions I'm going to give you. The first is regarding that conversion. What do you know about yourself that leads or doesn't lead to conversion? What do you need? What inside of you needs converted and changed? What is being conformed to God right now and what is not being conformed to God right now? Where does the grace of God need to work in you? Either that grace coming in through the sacraments, through prayer, and change you and redirect you. And second question, how are you going to build up the church on earth so that it brings itself into heaven? What are you going to do? Something concrete, something definitive to work towards. And finally, the last thing, what are your priorities? What is your goal? Because again, when we start living the double life, it's easy to forget what our goal is. Is your goal friends and happiness and pleasure here, or is it something far more eternal? Is it heaven? So that's what I want you guys to think about.